stream.
Sounds good. Thank you. Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the welcome to our meeting tonight of August 17th, 2021, 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and note this meeting we held electronically as authorized under the Open Meetings Act, Public Act 267 of 1976 as amended. Members of the public body and members of the public may participate electronically as described throughout our website and posted throughout our township. And with that, I would say I would like to call the meeting to order and pledge allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Supervisor Kowa.
Here. White Lake.
Here, White Lake Township. Treasurer Roman.
Here, White Lake Township.
Trustee Ruggles.
Here, White Lake Township.
Trustee Smith.
Here, White Lake Township.
Trustee Voorhees.
Present, White Lake Township.
And Trustee Powell.
Here, White Lake Township.
Thank you. We have a full house. Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I think I would like to have a discussion on this just quickly, and I'd like to see 3 items added if I could. And we obviously for discussion, I would very much like to add the state of emergency due to weather added. Communications between the township and the board, and discussion on the generator for the township hall.
Well, the generator is actually under the FYI, which unfortunately you don't have, and so is the state of emergency under the FYI. Why, I don't understand if you don't have an updated copy, but it is there.
Mr. Supervisor, I don't have the updated copy either, but instead of under discussion, Mr. Powell, would you entertain communication to the township board as a motion to add into our administrative policies under 2.0? Last updated April 21st, 2020.
If you'll make that motion, I'll second it.
I'll state that as a motion then. So I'd like to add.
First of all, I would make what is it that you want to do? You want to add it to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we will add it as Township Communications will be added as 10. We'll do that as 10B. Well, excuse me, I'd be the C. That'll be 10D. I'm sorry.
All right, and I'll support that. But for discussion here onto this, I guess I don't know what B and C is.
B is a generator and C is a state of emergency for the weather. Again, apologize. Should have been on there. If it wasn't,
Rick,
we'll make it known. Yes.
the declaration of the state of emergency.
It's just an FYI on it, where we stand.
Okay. Okay.
We have a motion to amend the agenda from Mr. Powell. We have support from Trustee Smith. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowa.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
And Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Very good. Motion carries. Still looking for approval of the agenda as amended. Mr. Powell.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support somewhere along the line.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Ruggles. Roll call vote for the amended agenda.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yep.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
and trustee Smith.
Motion carries. Agenda approved and amended. Moving on to public comment. At this time, is there anyone in the public? You'll have 3 minutes to state your case. You have to identify
Excuse
yourself.
me, I'm sorry, I wasn't called. Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, beg your pardon, Mr. Noble. Okay. we have
I'm
it, yeah.
sorry, I did say it, but maybe you didn't hear it. Trustee,
Okay, thank you.
trustee Smith.
Yes.
Moving on to public comment, item number 5. You'll have 3 minutes to state whatever is or is not on the agenda. And at this time, if there's anyone out there in the public, John, you can let them in. Is there anyone out there?
There is nobody in the public at the moment.
Seeing as there no one in the public, I will close the public comment and we'll move on to consent agenda, item number 6. Looking for a motion for the consent agenda? Mr. Roman,
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
looking for support?
I'll support the, Voorhees will support that.
Motion to support, roll call vote.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
and clerk Noble, yes.
Motion carries. Item number 7A, approval of the minutes, special board meeting of June 29th, 2021. Any comments or questions to the minutes? Otherwise, a motion. Yes, trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a comment. I noticed that there wasn't any trustee comments included in my copy. And I just was curious why. There's no trustee comments appearing in the minutes for anybody?
I don't believe, I can't recall if we had trustee comments at that meeting or not. Most of the special meetings, we do not have trustee comments. I don't believe there was.
Yeah, don't
Okay,
believe
I was
there
just
was. Yeah, I don't believe
curious.
it. Trustee Smith, I don't believe there was.
Yep.
Looking back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Still looking for that motion. Mr. Roman,
Motion to approve minutes of June 29th, 2021.
I have motion, looking for support.
Support.
Support from Clerk Noble. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
and supervisor Kowal.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 8A, we have a couple different things that are of great concern to us. There is National Recovery Month, which is September 2021. That persons that have substance abuse that have issues throughout the country, they're estimated 9.5 million people, 18 and older, that have substance abuse or some sort of disorder and mental illness. And we need to continue to raise awareness of the risk and the potential harm associated with prescription drug misuse. We believe everyone facing substances and disorders deserve the benefit of recovery. Stigma, stereotypes associated with substances and use of disorders often keep people from seeking treatment that can improve their quality of life. And substances use disorders occur when the recurrent use of alcohol and or drug cause clinically or functionally significant impairments such as health problems, disability, and failure to meet major responsibilities such as work and social commitment, and home and family, which is most important. Substance use disorder recovery benefits include the substance use disorders by focusing on their abilities to live, work, learn, and fully participate and contribute to our society, and also enrich the culture of our community as a whole. White Lake Township hereby recognizes September 21 as National Recovery Month, while White Lake calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public-private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our state of increasing awareness and understanding of substance abuse and the need for appropriate and accessible services to promote recovery, which is extremely important. And I don't have a hotline number, and I know there's one out there for that, but I will have someone, Liz, look that up real quick.
It's right here on the proclamation. I'll read it out loud. It's 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255.
Thank you very much, Andy. Voorhees, trustee Voorhees. The other is the National Prevention of Suicide Month, which is September 2021. Unfortunately, we see that happen in every segment of society. September is known as National Suicide Prevention Month and is intended to help raise awareness surrounding suicide prevention, resources available in the community. And Worldwide Suicide Prevention Day is observed each year on September 10th. And suicidal thoughts can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. And according to the CDC, each year more than 48,000 people die by suicide. That means every man, woman, and child in White Lake Township and then some to be gone, which is totally amazing and appalling. In May 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, ED visits for suspected suicide attempts began to increase among adolescents aged 12 to 17 years, especially girls, and organizations like National Alliance on Mental Illness and National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 800-273-TALK 8255 work to help individuals in crisis and provide resources to shed light on this highly stigmatized topic. Every year, thousands of individuals die by suicide, leaving behind friends, family members to navigate the tragedy of the loss. Often feelings of shame and stigma prevent them from talking openly about it and seeking help. Oakland Community Health Network is committed to being a zero suicide organization and cultivate a network of providers who are engaged in the zero suicide philosophy. Now, let it be resolved that White Lake Township hereby recognizes December 21 as National Suicide Prevention Month. White Lake calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our state with increased awareness and understanding of suicide prevention and the need to appropriate accessible services to assist individuals in crisis. So again, that number 1-800-273-TALK. And I proclaim those proclamations that should be adopted by our board, and I will look for a motion to adopt both of those.
As
Motion to
someone that
adopt.
works in that field, I would like to adopt National Recovery Month for September in 2021 in White Lake Township, along with Suicide Prevention Month for September of 2021.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
treasurer or trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes.
Very good. Item 9A, request to approve tentative agreement for POLC and paid on-call firefighters. This will take us through the end of the year. Kathy DeRocher, are you out there?
I am.
Okay, would you care to give us a quick briefing on this, please?
Sure. Fire Chief John Holland and I met with the bargaining unit several times. The tentative agreement you see before you identifies some areas where language was cleaned up, but most importantly, we identified a way to do some restructuring within the unit. We're looking at changing our paid on call to part-time firefighters. That was a significant change. And along with that, we've identified some shift work that we would like them to fill in some of the gaps when there's scheduled vacations and things that are of a predictable nature. So in the contract, you'll see that there's language that affects that. There's some cleanup language. The structures have, the pay structure has also changed slightly. So we went from about 7 different levels of pay, consolidating it to 4, making it much more consistent and easy to follow. And then their pay schedule is for just for 2021. All of our contracts will be expiring at the end of this year. So this was an extension of their current contract.
Thank you. Chief Holland, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Kathy did a good job covering that. She hit everything that was really of any significance as far as changes with the contract.
Okay, any questions from the board members at this time? Mr. Roman.
I just want John and Kathy, So for those part-time firefighters that are holding down jobs Monday through Friday, will they be able to schedule their fire shifts on weekends only?
No, they can schedule, it's gonna be up to them to do the scheduling. They can schedule around their own life. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we don't want to, we're not here to disrupt their life because we're not going to ever keep part-time firefighters if that's, our goal. So.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks, John.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Powell, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. And I'm wondering whether or not staff or Kathy or John or whomever who evaluates these things and does the negotiating and presenting to us, we aren't involved in this on a day-to-day basis. And so and I gotta tell you, I do not keep last year's version to compare to this year's version. Hopefully I'd be weird if I did that, but I don't. And it would really help me out in evaluating what I'm actually voting for here. Besides the language, the changes really help me understand what's going on. So if we had a red line version showing what was and what the changes have been made, that would be extremely helpful. And then maybe the final version as well. Because looking at this, I'm certainly reviewing it and I'm taking your word for it and it looks good, but it'd be really nice. I'd really like to know what the change is that we're offering from last year to this year. And I can't tell.
Kathy, care to comment?
We can make that happen in the next contract.
Okay, and that is a good point, Mr. Powell, and it's something that I think, unfortunately, what happens is some of the in-house stuff tends to be looked at, and again, you can't remember what happened a year or 2 or 3 years ago, and frankly, neither can I. So there is a good point to that. So you bring up a valid point, Mr. Noble.
Alan, I know you're out recruiting. We're at what, 5 part-time firefighters? I know we changed it, so we're at 5 going.
Correct.
With the goal of, our goal is going to be 10, correct?
That's my goal. There's no guarantee with that though. I mean, there's a national shortage of career firefighters. So trying to find part-time firefighters, people when they work a regular job, come home and then leave their family, leave at dinner time. It's difficult, but that's the ultimate goal. But I'll tell you, I still have to get through the career contract because there's language in there about part-time shift work. I don't want to bring more part-time guys on and then leave them in limbo until we get all this resolved. But once that's resolved, I'm going to be very active trying to get some part-time guys.
And this will work out better with the part-time nationally than doing the paid on call where they tone out, which it's very hard for the fire services to operate that way. Having that be part-time, this gives people a month in advance to schedule their time and help work around that. So it's going to be more of a success for you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Being here 36 years, I've watched us do the same thing over and over and over. And we expect different results and we never get them. That's the whole reason for this restructure. And our part-time guys will be called out when we have significant run volumes. I know the shift yesterday, we were down to 4 guys and they ran 18 calls in 24 hours with 4 guys. So we had callback. We'll have callback for the part-time guys when we start getting busy also.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
If you open it up to those of us on Medicare, you might get some volunteers.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, hey, we'll take applications. Anybody on the board's interested? Yeah.
Andrea Voorhees, I saw your hand up.
Yep, thank you. Mine is just a little bit of craziness. I didn't know what MFR stood for. So I actually reached out, medical first responder. I actually reached out to the firemen because I was reading this thinking maybe somewhere along the lines MFR. So just for future, you guys, just like simple things like that. Parentheses. Sorry, that's just my.
Hey, point taken. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Again, what I refer to as the shop talk or things that go on internally that unfortunately doesn't always get conveyed. Although the best interest of the board and the township is kept at heart by our staff and our chiefs. Okay, that being said, any more questions from the board? Entertaining a motion to move forward with this.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the paid on call firefighters moving forward with this contract.
1-year extension contract
One-year extension
dated August 4th.
dated August 4th through December 31st, 2021.
We have a motion looking for support. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
yes,
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item 9B, first reading
Yeah.
offenses regarding property trespass. And I found this kind of interesting that this changed and it's going to a different level. Counselor, do you have anything to add to this?
Not unless you have any questions. I mean, we're just trying to make it consistent with state law.
We're consistent with state law. So no matter, again, what the township would like to do, we'd like to hang them by their toes. They won't allow that. So unfortunately. So Chief Keller, do you have anything you want to enlighten us with on this?
No, it's simple. It just needs to be in conjunction with state law, and we're making it. And this is the first reading, and hopefully, you guys pass it so we can be in with state law.
Just another point
Okay.
of order, Mr. Supervisor, that if this were a red marked copy that we could see the changes, that would help me out.
It does say on the first page what the changes are. The current ordinance and offenses punishable by imprisonment for not more than 90 days
Yep.
or fine of not more than 500 or both. And in keeping with corresponding state law, requesting that White Lake Township change to the coincide with current language, and language would be punishable by imprisonment for not more than 30 days or a fine not more of $250 or both imprisonment and fine. So it is called out on the front. It is not redlined. You are correct, but it is called out.
All right, thank you.
I have motion. What did I see that? Did I see a motion to approve? Do I get a motion to approve? Mr. Noble,
I'll make a motion to approve request a change to our trespassing ordinance.
move to second reading.
Move to second reading.
I'll support.
I have motion. I have support. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
yes,
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes.
Thank you. Very good. Next item is a request to consider DLZ proposal for engineering services for Dublin Senior Center parking lot improvements. Any of you who have been over to Dublin will notice that the parking lot has gone many, many years without any maintenance. And there are a number of issues with some storm sewer structures, and the lack of curbing has led to, and the narrowness of the road has led to degradation of the pavement on its edges, and there's a series of cracks, and it's just getting close to reaching its useful life. This proposed contract for engineering services would take us through the process of rebuilding the two approaches and the parking lot, and giving us an option on one area whether or not we would do one particular area with the rest of the pavement. Not knowing the ultimate future use of the Dublin Center. Seeing as we are in the process of looking at developing a new civic center, the ultimate use of the Dublin Center may lie in question. One of the very possible and very good uses for Dublin Center would be ultimately a relocation of station number 2. It would, the conversations I had with John and previous chiefs agreed that that would be a very serviceable location. And currently the station number 2 that we have is deficient in more ways than you can shake a stick. And it would be something that we could look at. So the pavement work that would be done would not be done for naught and left to a building that we would abandon. We would never abandon that building because it is where the park is. And ultimately it would come before this board, obviously, if it went forward, for the option to potentially put a station number 2 there to do some rebuilding of that facility. The building itself is in very good shape. It already has some amenities in place. We did a modernization project to that not that many years ago. So ultimately, in the end, from a serviceable standpoint, it would be a direction of which we would go in. So it was our intent to make sure that the facilities there would be able to accommodate future fire service. Questions from the board? Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Mike, I got a question for you. I was looking at a breakdown of your fee table. And I was reading, maybe you could explain to me exactly what the construction administration fee, what does that include?
Yeah, so first of all, we wouldn't be looking for approval on that currently. That'd be on the future phase of the project when it goes to construction.
Okay.
That would be to administer the contract, deal with any contractor questions, construction engineering, inspection, any of those type of items that come up during construction.
Kind of overseeing the project?
Correct. Yeah, managing the contract, dealing with pay apps, any contractor questions, RFIs. Shouldn't be any shop drawings really on this project. It's pretty straightforward, but maybe reviewing, the materials that they're that the contractor is going to be placing, those type of things.
Thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else with a question? Mr. Noble.
I'd like to defer with this. It seems pretty pricey to me, that construction administration cost. I'm not an expert on this, but I know one expert on our board, and it's Mike Powell, that has 40 plus years, our trustee Powell, 40 plus years in the engineering business. So I'd like to get his opinion on this because it seems pretty costly, the construction administration fee.
Mr. Powell?
How about Mr. Roman first?
Oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Roman.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, just looking at the fee for engineering and construction administration of just under $50,000, it really did shock me. We're looking at a parking lot here, and wow, $50,000. That number just hit me, and just seems like an awful lot of money to pay for engineering and construction admin for a parking lot.
Okay, Mr. Powell.
I have to admit, when I came to this item, it certainly got my ire up a little bit. I had thrown a shot across the bow of DLZ a couple times already, and I'm just going to be overly blunt that this price is exorbitant and doesn't even make sense from several standpoints. But we just did this exact same thing for the Village of Wolverine Lake parking lot, which is about the exact same size, same slopes, same everything. We even included additional structures in it for paving, for drainage. Designed the whole thing, contract administration, surveyed it, and our price to the village was about 1/10 of what DLZ just quoted. It's an existing paved area. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to survey it. As a matter of fact, quite frankly, I don't even believe an engineer needs to be involved in this. If the township were to put together a request for proposals from 3, 4, 5, 6 qualified pavers with just some minor specifications like thickness, modifying some drainage structures, those guys can come back without a dime being spent at DLZ, and we could then choose from their price. I would expect the construction cost for the project is going to be about what DLZ has quoted for the engineering. And quite frankly, I'm very, very disappointed, and I'm not in favor of the township even extending this, or I think we just ought to deny it. There are a couple issues that I wanted to bring up to the board that until we know what this building is going to be used for, I think it would be improper to do any major construction on it. Certainly, we need to do some repairs. But the building itself, we don't know how that building's going to change, where the drives are going to be, what elevation those drives need to be. You don't design a building to an existing driveway. You design a building for what it's for, and then the driveways access it. While you're tearing down a building or while you're renovating a building, you've got major construction that's going to be all over the new pavement, and including excavation equipment. And so I just think this is the wrong time. Certainly totally inappropriate to spend $46,000 on engineering. If this came to a company like mine, we'd do every single thing that DLZ has quoted here for $5,000. And so I'm embarrassed that DLZ has put this before the township, and I'm not in favor of it at all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Powell. Any other comments from the board? Okay, I will tell you.
I'd
I beg
certainly
your
like an
pardon?
opportunity to kind of explain the scope of work, Mr. Cowell, if that'd be appropriate.
Absolutely, go ahead, Mr. Lookin.
I'd like to share my screen and kind of just show, I'll show an exhibit just so that we're clear. I just want to make sure that everybody understands what Rick and I talked about when we were on site and some of the work that we're anticipating doing under this proposal. So as we talked about wanting to do as a base bid contract. So the idea is we're going to design repair methods for all of the parking lot, both driveways, widening the south driveway for right out, left out, and in traffic, which is wider than the current driveway. Supervisor Cole talked about doing a deeper strength asphalt up front, because if we're going to do this now, we wanted to make sure we were going to accommodate potential, fire truck traffic utilizing the Dublin Senior Center. We talked about adding, and I don't know that it's clear in the proposal, and that might be something that's needs to be added or just discussed tonight, but we talked about looking at this corner of the property for ADA concerns, making it a little bit nicer for some seniors, some people that might have accessibility concerns, to create some accessible parking back here. Also adding a feature that would allow for a handicap restroom, a portable restroom. Right now there's a porta potty, a single stall. We could do some appurtenances to kind of make for a nice, they got the wider wheelchair accessible porta potty access. We talked about that. So we talked about, potentially doing some upgrades to the sidewalk if there's not ADA compliance on here currently. As noted, some of the storm structures are going to need evaluation and plans for repair. There's a trench drain across the drive that's in disrepair that we're going to need to replace, do some work on that. One of the items that's going to create some work and some value in the contract and some grading effort on our part is the request for putting sidewalk across the front of the site. If you're familiar with the property, there's a detention basin out here which has a berm out in the right area where that sidewalk's going to be placed, which is going to cause some regrading of the detention basin, reworking of the grades in that area, kind of reworking of the grades just to kind of transition to the adjacent property to the south. So I just wanted an opportunity to kind of explain some of the efforts that we've been asked to include in this proposal so that everybody understands the effort. But I appreciate the consideration.
Yeah. Now, if you'll notice, Mike, there's an alternate one, and then the base bid. The alternate one was not to be necessarily worked on just for the reasons that you stated, of which I am all too familiar with. If the approaches are rebuilt, they can be rebuilt to a specification that'll take additional weight. But yes, if you're going to have some construction going on, it's best not to have necessarily in the future, near future, have equipment running over those areas. The other area is typically used and is oftentimes quite full for individuals who frequent the park. And that is a area that we need to make more accessible. And in turn, that very end down, the end down on the, what I would call the farthest eastern end of that, has some rather hazardous trip areas there that need to be remedied. And that was also part of what we had discussed out on this particular project. And again, as we go through our planning commission, we need to be held to the same standard as the rest of our community that we hold to. And that would be, if we're going to do this type of work, is that we need to walk the walk and talk the talk, and that is put that sidewalk across the front of our property that persons would be able to continue to use, although it does go to the cemetery to the south, and who knows what the future holds with that area as far as any future extension of that sidewalk. But these were some of the areas and some of the thought processes that we had as we were going through this. And I firmly believe that if we do this in preparation, whether or not we accept DLZ's contract or go in a different direction, there are structures there that need to be repaired, and there are a number of items that need to be done. And if we're going to do the repair and refit to the ADA requirements, I believe we should consider doing the sidewalk in front of the project as well. So that is pretty much the extent of the project as it is. There is actually quite a bit of pavement there, more than you realize once you start walking it. I believe the asphalt end of this thing is $91,000. That's a calculation on the guesstimated bid. Yes, 91.8.
So the just the project cost estimate, so that we can all be on the same page again. We estimated the base bid work at $221,000 and the alternate work to be $90,000. So you're about $312,000 in estimated cost. Again, that's taken into consideration some deep strength asphalt, the sidewalk, the grading of the basin, the storm sewer work, those type of items. With those prices, put it in terms of percent of construction for the design fee, we're at about 7.4%. And on the construction administration side, it's about 7.5% of the estimated construction costs. So just wanted to give you guys that as well.
Okay, and we do, and we'll have some of the ARPA monies that is can be used for senior type improvements, senior facility improvements. And seeing as today it is a senior facility, it is a qualifying expenditure. So that is definitely a possibility for the $3.25 million that we are going to be receiving from the government. So I'm not to just necessarily spend that money, and there may be other methods and means we can look at, but we do have it in the pipeline, and it is firmly a possibility. Any comments or questions from any of the board members again? Mr. Powell.
Yeah, that everything that Mr. Lufkin, Engineer Lufkin has said could be written up in a paragraph form and given to any number of contractors that could accomplish all of that. Just even the detention basin that was brought up, when this is redone for whatever use this board decides this site's going to be used for, it's going to have more pavement and more hard surfaces than it does now. So the detention basin is going to actually have to be modified at that time. What a shame to spend this kind of money on a design without a penny going in for improvements, and we don't even know what that building's going to be used for. I think maintenance needs to be done, but boy, I would be very disappointed to spend this kind of money on design.
Okay, very good. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And I just want to take a moment to apologize to my colleagues and residents. I was having some camera issues, so hopefully you can see me better now. Anyways, I agree with Trustee Powell on this issue. I'm all for sidewalks, so I'd like to either see this reworked and just have maintenance and sidewalks, or perhaps go out to bid for other bids, because I do agree, this is an exorbitant amount of money and we're not sure what we're going to use this building for right now. It makes a lot more sense to wait and make the building usable for the purpose in the future. So I'm in agreement with Mr. Powell on this. Thank you.
Okay, I saw a hand, Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I don't really want to pile on here, but I'm gonna agree with most of the comments that Mr. Powell said. I think it's also a tough time to try to put together a construction project in this economic climate that we've been forced into. So I'm gonna be voting against this tonight.
Okay, very good. Anyone else at this time? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, after hearing my fellow board members' points, I think they're all valid. And I would agree that anything there that's dangerous needs to be fixed. I would also be receptive to the sidewalk. But other than that, I don't think it's a good time to do this project.
Okay, well, I will tell you from firsthand experience and conversations that I've had with individuals that frequent it, and in particular, the couple of the catch basins, one in particular that's there, has probably, in its lid, it probably has a 3-inch tilt from one end to the other, which is quite evident that the substructure is starting to collapse. So we do need to remedy that. It would, everybody looks at projects differently, but that's why I brought it before this board so that the board could have the input on this particular project. So I would like to not just necessarily turn this down. I would like to table this project and have potentially it brought back in a different form, or we could decline it and I can bring it back in just a repair format. So I'm looking at welcoming suggestions from the board. Mr. Powell.
I would not be in favor of this even being tabled. I think it's so far out of reasonability that it needs to be denied. And then the supervisor can bring back a repair proposal that this board can really analyze a little bit more. This caught me off guard, and the scope of work that Mr. Lufkin certainly presented. I don't believe this board, it was ever presented to this board, and it gets into that communication issue maybe that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. But I think it'd be inappropriate to approve this or even table it.
Okay, so
Is that a motion?
If the supervisor would like a motion, yes.
well, what I would do is just put a motion to approve and put it up there and see, and if it fails, it fails. So that would make the most sense to move this along. So if you care to make that motion, and sometimes you make a motion to approve and people vote no on it and then it fails and it goes on to the next level. So that would be the best way to handle this. So that being said, Andrea, you had your hand up?
No, I was gonna say, because you kind of, I'm all about putting tabling it, but what happens is what happens. Because I'd like to see it do with repairs also.
Good. Okay. So we'll just take, I would recommend that we, yes,
Supervisor
Mr. Noble. Yes.
To your point, I think it needs to be repaired, and I'm in agreement of that. But I think right now with the costs that were in front of us, I think taking the lead of the expert in our group, I'm not in favor of that, but repairing it, I definitely am.
But again, for procedural purposes,
Okay.
I'm going to put it to a vote. And if it gets voted
Absolutely.
down, that kills
Okay,
it.
then
That's where we're at. So
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to, I'll just make this motion to vote. Well, I guess I'll make it this way. I'll make a motion to proceed with a vote on the proposal for DLZ. And I do need support to move that forward to a vote. Mr. Roman.
Lisa.
Okay,
I
Lisa
think-
Hamami.
Well, your motion wasn't clear, Rick. Is the motion to approve?
To approve, I beg your pardon. The motion would be to approve the DLZ proposal put before the board. I'll make that as a motion. Mr. Roman
I'll
will
still support it.
still support. Thank you. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Trustee Ruggles,
No.
Trustee Voorhees,
No,
Supervisor Kowal,
No.
Treasurer Roman,
No,
Trustee Smith,
No.
Trustee Powell,
No.
Clerk Noble, no.
Okay. Motion fails. Mr. Lufkin, we will get back to you in the future on this matter.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good. I just
Okay.
really want everybody to understand, just trying to help in any way possible. So I appreciate the opportunity to relook at it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike, for
Thank you,
everything.
Mike.
Be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 9D, Charter Township White Lake, temporary closure of Shelby Drive. Mr. O'Neill. Where are you?
I'm right here, but this is not me.
This Supervisor Kowa,
Yes,
this is going to be for a block party.
I see that.
So I can take this
I'm
one.
not
if you-
even invited.
You're not invited, and neither
Sure.
was I. Okay,
No.
Mr. Noble, please proceed. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, Mr. O'Neill.
So this is going to be a block party Saturday, August 21st, 2021. And the applicant is requesting permission to block off a section of Shelby Drive between 9513 and 9533 between the hours of 12:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. So they submitted an application and the resolution number would be 21-027. I'd like to make a motion to move forward with this.
I see there's a letter from Mr. Holland. He doesn't give any necessarily any objection to it. And the road commission apparently has a commission permit of number 52632. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Is that in the form of a motion, Mr. Noble?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ruggles, you have a question or statement?
Oh, I just wanted to support the motion.
Okay. I have a motion. We have support. Okay.
Mr. Roman?
Roll call. Oh, I beg your pardon. Mr. Roman?
Yeah, no, I just want to add, I think it's great that our communities are
Mhm.
doing these types of things outdoors. Getting outdoors, getting the kids involved, anything but video games. So I support it as well.
Very good. Okay. We have motion. We have support. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Absolutely, yes.
Very good. Maybe we'll get an invite out of the deal. Okay. Okay. Don't hold your breath. I understand there's baked goods there, Mike.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I know. Okay. That being said, moving on to item 9E, the resolution 21-028 declaring a local state of emergency to protect the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare under the current COVID-19. As you all know, we are currently under two states of emergency. One is the tornado, and this one is obviously a separate item. And this is the Public Act of 267 and 1976 is amended on the 17th day of August is what we will be doing hopefully today. But this takes us back to when we had our original proposal. Well, it goes back twice now. We've redone it so that we have the state of emergency. There's been multiple outbreaks of the Delta variant, and there has been quite a bit of consideration. I believe Mr. Noble did email some of the information that came to us through a variety of Oakland County Health and the CDC and a variety of other health sources. There's great concern over that. Our number one job at the township is to provide for the safety, well-being, and welfare of the employees and the residents of the township. We all may want to have in-person meetings. I may say that I am very tired of doing this, and I do like to have the in-person meetings. I actually enjoyed the couple that we had. However, this variant is running rampant. If you have seen the map that has come out, Oakland County is now considered a high risk community, and a communities along the state border. So anyone that travels in the state of Michigan stops at a gas station could get hammered with this thing. And until we have a better handle on this, we know where we stand, and we do not know where the Department of CDC and or the MIOSHA will have its determination. If MIOSHA makes a determination to be in mask, and they do change potentially some of the work location rules, the township has no other option but to comply, period. It's not a debate. We have to comply. So in preparation for what I think and what we feel may be inevitable, it would seem that we carry this on for a few more months, hopefully get through this storm, and then be back on track before too long. So I will open this up for questions or comments from the board. Mr. Noble.
So first, I sent everybody emails. We did, myself and Deputy Clerk Santiago did researches for informational purposes. You can formulate your own opinions. I apologize for sending out. We've been working on the cemeteries, which I'd like to add that we are getting covered by insurance. So it's a good thing. So we've been doing bids on that. So I did apologize by sending that out. I did have a brief discussion with Trustee Powell about it, that I'd be sending that, and then I sent it out. So if you can go to your email, if you're able to take a look, but there's a map on there and it kind of describes, and just formulate your own opinion on it. And I know we all have different opinions on certain issues, but that's why I sent it out there for you today.
And we are not the only community that is doing this. Mr. Ruggles.
Rick, did you say we're under some kind of an emergency order from another governing body?
We are currently under emergency order that we imposed upon ourselves as a township that will expire this month.
Okay.
This is essentially an extension of that order through December. Okay.
Because there's nothing through the governor's office or the state, or
Not at this time, no.
there's
But
no mask mandates. There's no.
Not at this time, okay? However, if MIOSHA comes along and makes a requirement, which I am very suspect that it is going to do, because there are other communities, Washtenaw County offices have now all gone to mask, Ogun County has all gone to mask. Several of these areas have. My thought process was that it would put us in a defensive position and would enable us to continue doing our meetings under the Open Meetings Act and meet the requirements, because we have to have this meeting.
I see.
Lisa Hamami. Whoop, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. Thought you were done. Okay.
No, not to put you on the spot, but so you brought the resolution to the board because you would prefer us to continue this Zoom meetings because you're worried about the Delta variant?
I am concerned about the Delta variant. Yes, I am. I am concerned about it. And I've had multiple residents share the same concern, and persons that have come into the hall and folks that I've talked to. And it is a concern. There's people that I've talked to.
So what do you do about all the employees at town hall?
Town hall will comply with whatever the MIOSHA ruling is.
Which is nothing.
Currently, it is recommended to wear a mask, but it's not a mandate. Okay.
So we, us 7 people, can't sit 6 feet apart, but everybody at the township office can go to work?
Most persons in the offices are in isolated cells, and we were using the commons area. That was the area that all masks would be worn in transit from office to office. If you couldn't maintain 6 foot from another individual that you work with, you did wear a mask.
Okay. You believe that they can test for the Delta variant?
I am not a medical expert, nor I will not comment on that.
Okay.
Lisa Hamami.
Lisa, you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. Just because you pass this resolution, it doesn't mean you have to have all of your meetings via Zoom. It gives you the ability to do so. It also gives the supervisor the ability to allow remote work if that's necessary as well. You won't have to have a special meeting to pass this in order to deal or address an issue that comes up that maybe isn't in existence right now.
But it takes all the power out of this township board, right? By saying he doesn't have to have a special meeting to do something, it means that we don't get to talk about it, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, that's why we're talking about it now, Scott. Okay. That's why we're having this conversation. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Ruggles, can you clarify what you just said? Can you repeat that?
I think what Lisa meant was that if we pass this resolution, that in the future, the supervisor has the ability to let people work from home or continue the Zoom meetings without this township board being consulted on those decisions. Right?
Okay, thank you.
I think that's accurate.
But again, that's why we're having this conversation. Okay. Yes, Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So I just want to take a minute. I also researched this and I shared it with some of the board members as well, just for informational purposes. So although many of us may want to return in person or not continue such mandates in our township, it's my understanding that what this does allow for us, which wasn't presented in the resolution, was it allows us almost as a hybrid approach. So if we choose to attend in person, say 3 or 4 of us choose to attend in person, we can also allow the public in. And if the other half of us want to attend by Zoom until December 31st of this year, we may. The other thing that we need to take into consideration is whatever ruling or vote this board decides to be in person or not in person affects our commissions and our Parks and Rec, CBA, and planning. So if we decide to stay Zoom, they have to stay Zoom. If we go in person, they have to go in person. And not knowing their feelings or being able to have that information presented to us if they want to do that or not gives me pause. So although I'm not for necessarily continuing more restrictions than necessary, if we do move forward with this state of emergency, it actually allows us more options. So I just wanted to share that with the board.
Okay, Mr. O'Neill, you care to comment on that, the concerns of the different boards?
I guess as it pertains to the Planning Commission and ZBA and Parks Committee, look, we're going to do whatever you are comfortable with us doing. I know there's a mixed bag out there. I guess my feeling is that, I certainly like seeing everyone in person, but I've heard from applicants, I've heard from some residents and some participants who are on these boards and commissions that they have some concerns. So that's maybe the minority, not the majority, but if we start losing any of them as participants in, either as members, as the public, or as applicants, that could be a problem. So I guess I'm trying to be sensitive to that. And I understand what the board's struggling with. I mean, there are certainly pressures to go back, but there's some unknown here too. So, I'm certainly 100% supportive of whatever you decide. And I'm sure the boards and commissions will be as well. I mean, they just want to be able to meet and keep moving forward in whatever fashion that is.
And we have been successful in doing just what we're doing right now. There's no question about it. It has worked. ZBA, Planning Commission, Parks and Rec, all of them have moved forward. They really haven't missed a beat, and have a little more caution in the current situation would be a good thing. There was over 100,000 cases of the Delta variant that became diagnosed I think it was just last week, over 100,000. So we're not quite sure where it'll end up or what it will do. Some persons it may not affect as much, just like COVID did. I mean, for example, we have a person on this particular screen here that had the COVID and didn't even know it, okay? And other persons who had it and experienced some difficulty. So it's really an unknown. The question is if you're willing to risk with other people's lives. I'm not, okay? Mr. Powell.
I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor, would you please tell me what the risk of us holding a public meeting and being 6 feet, what is the risk to the public health, Mr. Supervisor?
The Delta variant.
I'm sorry, I just had a COVID test, and their test, the standard test, will tell you whether you're positive or negative. It does not state whether it's a Delta variant. So this represents a miscommunication and a misstatement that things are Delta variant because it's an unknown, and therefore we can rile the people. My position on this is that that we have sorely been lacking in any public representation here at these board meetings, because people just, number one, if they stay home, they're going to do something else. It's like staying home and instead of going to church. They have a hard time getting in. We have a hard time getting in, and yet the public is being asked to get in. And so there's no public representation when we hold a Zoom meeting. I just feel that this statement of emergency further promotes the degradation of mental health here in the township. And we're putting in the fear of God in other people, saying, wear masks if you're alone in the car. Don't go out of your house. Heaven forbid, if we hold a meeting in public, and if somebody wants to come, they can actually talk to us instead of over a phone or something like that. If they don't feel comfortable, then by golly, they stay home. If they don't feel comfortable coming without a mask, then by golly, have them wear a mask. I'm totally frustrated with the use of the Delta variants scenario, because nobody knows who has the Delta variant, just whether they're positive or not. MyOSHA, I believe, if you study it, I don't believe MyOSHA has any statement, any control over public meetings in the township. It controls the activity of construction workers and kitchen workers, things like that.
You are incorrect. You are incorrect.
The state health department does, but I don't think MyOSHA does. So
you are incorrect.
All right, then I stand corrected.
Mr. Powell.
If we need to have a special meeting because they pull that on us, then so be it. I'd much rather wear masks than eliminate the public, eliminate us meeting together in a public meeting. Mr. Supervisor, is there any limitation on capacity at public meetings right now due to COVID?
At this particular time, I do not believe that's the case. But
Why don't we
again,
wait until the people that actually know what's going on tell us, instead of us scaring people, including ourselves, saying, I'm sorry, we're not going to get together because public health prevents it. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor.
and that is your opinion, and you are entitled to it. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Andrea Voorhees, please.
Yep, absolutely. No, I agree that one of our jobs is to protect the residents of White Lake Township. One of the reasons I got vaccinated was to protect not only myself, but the residents. I personally
You shouldn't have any worries then, Andrea.
No.
You should have
I
none
know.
Mr.
whatsoever.
Ruggles,
I agree,
Mr.
but-
Ruggles, one conversation at a time, please.
Thought that was the point of the
One
shot.
conversation at a time, please. Yeah, Andrea.
But I still want to protect myself and my fellow township people and what outside. I personally have because I'm out in the community a lot with my job. I totally have instituted my own policy for masks 2 weeks ago. My company, because I work in a vulnerable population, instituted it yesterday to try and keep us safe. I'm still working from home as much as I can. So, and I miss the faces also, but I'm in agreement with Supervisor Colwell. We need to continue this.
If you believed the
Mr.
government,
Ruggles,
can I speak?
you raise your hand to be recognized. Mr.
Can I
Ruggles.
speak now? Thanks. If you believed the government was telling you the truth then, as you took the needle, you should believe them now. That you're fine. They told you you'd be fine. We shouldn't be scaring our residents.
I don't believe everybody has their own opinion, Mr. Ruggles, and I can appreciate that. Andrea's in the healthcare industry, and they have a different outlook of it than you do, and I respect that. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Because there's so many strong and diverse opinions on this topic, I'm really a proponent here of the hybrid, so that everybody has their own choice. So what that looks like is a quorum in person or a quorum online, and we would have the choice to do that as board members. So even if Mr. Powell is on vacation and he announces where he is, if a resident of White Lake happens to be there, he has to entertain them as public. So we're governed by the Open Meetings Act on this particular issue, as we know. So what I think I'm hearing from my colleagues is they do not like the language in this resolution, and the reason that it would be moving forward is the Delta variant. So perhaps if we can reword this resolution or move forward in a different matter without this resolution, that would make people feel more comfortable. But if we move forward with the hybrid thought process, it allows any board member here that would like to come and appear in public and have a public meeting, it allows them to do so.
And any board member that's not comfortable with that or is unable to attend for some reason in person, they're allowed to attend via Zoom, same with the public. And then also keep in mind, this is no matter what, just till the end of the year. After December, we must appear in public in person. The only exclusion is a military deployment. So we're talking about 4 months, and instead of fighting amongst each other, I think we should look for a solution here. And the best solution might be the hybrid method, because it allows for everybody to choose.
Very
Question.
good. Thank you, Trustee Smith. Mr. Noble.
So to Liz's point, and a question for Lisa. Going hybrid, we would have to have that open to the public, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
the quorum of the board would have to be in person, and that meeting must be open to the public. But you could then allow members of the public and remaining members, not the quorum, participate electronically. But you'd have to have the technology for that. I don't know that White Lake is equipped.
You're not set up. at this
Okay.
time.
Okay, so to the point, and they're all great valid points, is right now with the COVID and the delay in the I think of the word, supply chain, we have ordered technology, but it has not arrived here right now. I do know that much. So when we formulate our decision on this, I think that has to take an effect from what I'm hearing. We need the technology to support what Liz is suggesting, and we don't have that yet. So I think if we kind of meet in the middle and come up with a compromise, I think we could reach that.
Are you referring, Mr. Noble, to like instead of December, like November or October or something like that? Is that what you're referring to?
Correct, because I think Trustee Smith has a good valid point as far as, opening it up in person, but we have to have the technology, the way I'm understanding it, to support that open quorum. So we wouldn't be able to open it up right now. We just don't have the technology right now, is what I'm hearing. All great valid points, but we have to at least push this out until we have a plan, and we don't have a plan in place. I think we can agree on that.
That's true. Mr. Powell.
Guess I'm a little bit, I guess I don't understand. You guys are in your homes. I'm in my home. Are we saying that we have the technology in our home, but we don't have it at the township to hold a Zoom meeting?
Not to interact at the level of what we're talking to, we would have to consult with the technicians to see how that would work. Miss Amami?
Mike, the idea is if you're going to do a hybrid, you have to allow the public to be at the meeting where the quorum is.
Yeah.
How would the public, without laptops in front of them, participate in the Zoom meeting and see those board members who maybe aren't in the room? So the technology is so that there's two-way communication between everybody in attendance, either in person or via Zoom.
So I believe Merge has that technology, and they are a sub-consultant to us. So tomorrow they could come and set up and perform that service for us.
Well, that remains to be seen. We would need to consult with them prior to that. The technology that we've ordered, that the board approved for the new boardroom, is way out down the pipe. It is on order, but it is down the pipe. Nothing has arrived yet, and we don't even have a ship date.
So you're saying if we don't approve this, then we go to meetings in person and everything goes on the way it's going to have to be in January, because you're not going to be able to get an opportunity to do it this way after January.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I mean, we don't have the technology right now to do it the way that Trustee Smith is proposing, which isn't necessarily a bad solution, but we just don't have the technology in place. And we're still waiting for equipment and still hoping that we'll know when we'll get a ship date before too long. And this was only trying to put us in a position so that we could continue to move forward if we have to work in this matter. I think a hybrid, I'm not sure quite how it'll work and people would be able to communicate. Ms. Amami?
If I can just offer a suggestion to move this along, if the board would be so inclined to approve this resolution, because you cannot have a hybrid or electronic meeting without a state of emergency. But keep on the agenda discussion regarding state of emergency for every meeting coming up, and it can be reevaluated. In the interim, the supervisor could explore what merges capabilities are and follow up with the company you hired the equipment from and provide updates to the board. Say next month, there'd be an agenda item where you could revisit this issue. But I feel like at this point, if you don't pass this resolution today, you're going to be live in September unless you have a special meeting. So maybe that's the compromise, as long as everyone moves forward in trying to achieve the hybrid approach.
Mr. Powell.
So I have two questions on that. Number one, me turning my laptop around and showing the audience on a laptop, turn it around to where they can speak into the laptop is not enough, number one. Number two, why don't we just change the date instead of December 31st? Let's change the date to our next meeting so that it forces us to make a decision each month instead of it not being put on the agenda.
Thought process. Comments or questions? Trustee Smith.
So I do think we could, with a little effort, have the technology. I don't think it's as hard as you think. So we have, large TV screens in the boardroom, and I'm not sure if there's one in the annex, but I know we ordered one. And so I think Ken from Merge Live would have the capability to share our screen up on a larger monitor, and there the board members would be. Also, I know I've brought this up in the past, and Ms. Hamami disagreed with me, but it is now been passed by the legislature that a board member can call in by conference call as well to vote. I know I brought that up in the past, that it had, you couldn't, we had a little disagreement about that because it was a opinion of an MTA attorney, but not law, and it is now passed, is my understanding. So a board member doesn't have to necessarily be on Zoom. They could be on teleconference, speakerphone, and be allowed to vote now. So that's an option. I do think with a little bit of effort, if this is that direction our board decides to go, that the technology isn't that hard to accomplish.
Well, the key to this, as Lisa said, is you have to have a quorum. So if you don't have 4 members showing up at the township hall, you don't have a quorum.
Well, the information that I received from MTA, and it's my interpretation, is I just think it's a quorum, not a quorum in person or a quorum online. It's a combined quorum, is my understanding.
Counselor?
That's not the interpretation of all of the attorneys in my firm.
How is that different than what we're doing right now? We do not have a quorum in person.
No, but we are approved under the Open Meetings Act.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Counselor.
It's about having an in-person meeting and allowing the public to attend. So if you're going to do the hybrid, you have to have a quorum in person, allow the public to attend, and then board members can attend remotely as well, and other public can attend remotely. But if you're going in person, you have to allow the public. And if you're going to have an open meeting in person, then it needs to have a quorum in person.
So Mr. Supervisor can check that with MTA as well.
I will refer with my attorney. The attorney represents us, not the MTA. Mr. Roman.
Yeah, so this isn't an easy one. I have very mixed feelings about how to deal with this all. But I do like Lisa Hamami's idea. That would avoid having to create a new resolution every month. But to maybe approve this the way it is, but add into the motion that each month we revisit this state of emergency. And that gives the board the ability to kill this at each and every future board meeting.
Okay, that's a good thought. So if we were to support this, would next month would be a remote meeting also, and at that time, we would make a decision whether or not to follow through the next month to be remote.
Correct,
Is that what you're proposing?
correct.
And my recommendation was that in the meantime, Rick will explore the possibility of facilitating these hybrid meetings.
Yep. If you want me to put that in the form of the motion, I will do so.
I would say to do so, Mr. Rowan.
Okay, that's in the form of a motion.
It is in the form of a motion, looking for support
Support.
for resolution 21028 as modified.
As modified per Treasurer Roman's motion, as per in-house counsel Lisa Mame. That's what she earlier stated.
Very good. We have a motion, we have support, roll call vote, please.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
No.
Trustee Ruggles,
No.
Trustee Smith. Trustee Smith,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's delayed.
I'm gonna vote no. So we're going with the current language in the resolution, no change to the language in the resolution?
Only extended for 1 month on a month-to-month basis.
Based on, this decision sparked up good conversation based on what you said, based on what the attorney said, and based on us not having the equipment. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, we're moving it forward, this language for 1 month.
No, through the end of the year.
Counselor, but to be reviewed monthly.
So just so that it's clear, Mike, maybe you should repeat your motion.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
So the motion is to approve the resolution as stated. However, the board will add to its agenda each month discussion on this resolution that would give the board the ability to kill it or amend it as the board wishes. And also that supervisor looks into some of these remote options as discussed.
We had motion and we had support. We had a number of votes. I don't even know where we were at this point.
Would you like me to read?
It's,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I believe it's my vote, right? So I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, Supervisor Kowal?
Yes. Yes.
Correct. Did I miss anyone? Because we stopped. Got it.
I'm sorry for the
Do you have
pause.
did you get Andrea Voorhees?
And Trustee Voorhees.
Andrea voted.
Trustee,
Yeah, I
she
voted.
voted yes. Okay.
Okay.
How did Andrea vote? I don't even remember.
Yes, I voted yes.
I think it carried.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
It did.
believe it did carry. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Item E, preliminary site plan approval, White Lake Retail Management LLC. Mr. O'Neill?
Hello and thank you.
That's enough, Rick.
Tonight, Mitch Harvey and Bo Wynn are here on behalf of this project. They're representing White Lake Retail Management. We in the office are referring to this as the Sonic redevelopment. So everyone knows where Sonic's at in the Fisk Corners development. A while back, I think roughly 2 years ago, Sonic closed. And this group is coming in and wanting to redevelop that site, which is great. We don't want vacant buildings, and the Sonic building is really unusable for really much else. Nothing, no other business, or there aren't many businesses that really run an operation that's quite like that. So we're certainly happy to have them come to town and make a proposal, which is before all of you tonight on a parcel that's about 1 acre in size. What's easy about this, at least from where I stand before I jump into where this is at in the process, is that it's an eyesore now, and it has been. And the rest of the site around it's pretty much developed. So you're scraping a building and basically plunking a brand new, nice looking building down that's going to have tenants in it. So from an economic development standpoint, it's pretty straightforward and to me, pretty easy. Let me share my screen. Okay. Let me jump to the right page here. And just so everybody is familiar with the location, let me share this screen. Here is the Sonic. Back out a little ways here. M59 Fisk Road, the Salvation Army store. So this is a parcel we're talking about here. The site plan, which is in your packet, if I could zoom away here for a second, just shows the new 2-unit building, which is about 6,000 square feet in size, located in roughly the center of the site. They do propose a drive-through. At the Planning Commission meeting on August 5th, the Planning Commission approved, or I should say recommended for approval, this site plan with some conditions. A special land use was not needed because the Sonic already had the special land use, and that does run with the land. They'll just have to adhere to the hours of operation, and a conversation I had today with Mitch Harvey, don't think that's going to be an issue. If it was to be an issue, then they'd certainly come back to the township and work with the Planning Commission on that. But again, this is a 6,000 square foot or roughly 6,000 square foot building. It might be hard to see on my screen. I can zoom in just a little bit. Couple comments the Planning Commission had was that they'd like to see the sidewalk out in front here increased to a 7-foot sidewalk, as well as a sidewalk through this landscaped area. I don't think the applicants had any issue with that. There's a 4-foot strip down the side of the building that I believe is going to be vegetated, and the Planning Commission would like to see this as a 5-foot sidewalk, and that was agreed to by the applicant as well. The one issue that the Planning Commission was a little bit concerned about was a lack of a loading zone, and you'll see that in the minutes. Talked to Mitch today, and he had an idea which I think sounds reasonable to me, and I don't know if you want to hear a full presentation from him, but you may want to hear from him on his proposal for dealing with this loading zone issue, which is a requirement of the zoning ordinance and is not really accounted for in this. Before I kick it over to him, I will again say the Planning Commission recommended approval of this preliminary site plan, and just those few minor items that were mentioned were the only conditions, I think, and all the reviews had just some minor issues, but again, everything should be able to be addressed by final. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, and I guess I would kick it to Mitch if he wants to show his plan for, introduce himself and show his plan for that loading zone that we discussed.
Thank you. My name is Mitchell Harvey with Stonefield Engineering Design, representing the applicant this evening. I'll just briefly, excuse me, share my screen to kind of show what our game plan is for the loading here. So let me know if you guys can see this screen share I have.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So at planning, we had a lot of discussions regarding the loading of this site. So just to provide a little bit of information on the tenants, this retail space is currently proposed to be a mattress retailer. And there is no tenant just yet for the drive-through restaurant, but we looked into the loading uses for, a typical drive-through tenant and a mattress retailer, and really found that we don't need much of a loading zone. The mattress retail tenant essentially ships from warehouses located throughout Michigan, so you don't have people delivering mattresses often. I think they said they get mattresses delivered once every 2 weeks. Just new models coming in for people to try out. So what we wanted to do is opposed to put a large loading zone, we're in an area that we currently are proposing as green space. We want to utilize an area that we don't anticipate much vehicle traffic coming through during off hours, and kind of designate this area with signage as a proposed off-hour loading area with no vehicles stopping or standing within the loading zone. Pedestrian vehicles, not loading vehicles. So this is our proposal is kind of a solution for the loading situation here. Again, I don't think we need a whole large loading zone for the minimum amount of loading that we need here. So we kind of wanted to preserve some of the green space that we have. With that, I mean, Mr. O'Neill did a great job of giving everybody an overview. So if there are any other questions regarding the site plan or architecture, Bo Wynn, the project architect, is also on. And so we'll be happy to dive deeper into any pieces that the board would like to discuss. Thank you.
You're gonna need to go back to full screen. Thank you.
So just really quickly, if I could, we talked about that. I wanted him to share that specifically, but Sonic did not have a loading zone, or certainly not one that I'm aware of on their site. So this is, I think, a reasonable solution. If they don't come up with a loading zone area, then they have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And, this wasn't something that was presented to the Planning Commission. It was something that came up in discussion after the meeting. So I think we're at a situation where if you find that this is reasonable, then I think you could approve it, just subject to, us working out the details through the next kind of iteration of these plans. And then when it gets back to the Planning Commission, they'll know that you have resolved this with the applicant. I think that would be sufficient, if you chose to do that. And I certainly support doing that. I think I would agree with Mitch. The type of uses proposed here and the scale of this small project, it's not going to be like a grocery store where deliveries are coming all hours of the day and night, and they need, a huge loading zone. I think this meets the minimum, the intent of the ordinance, the minimum standard of the ordinance, and allows them to move ahead. That's just my feeling. But that's all I have. I do have some elevations I can share with you, or Bo might be able to share elevations if you'd like to see them for the building as well. One comment I'll add is the Planning Commission asked them to increase the amount of masonry material on the building, and I think they're working on that as well. It was a nice start, and I think they're going to upgrade it a little bit, as well as add some landscaping to this site. That's all I have.
Mr. Supervisor, you're
Muted.
muted.
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, just two things popped up, questions. I guess it depends who the tenant is in the drive-through, but an off hours loading site, some of those are 24 hours a day, right? I don't know if that's a big deal. And then, with the other building, the mattress, there could be a change of use that would affect, that the need for a loading. So I don't know if maybe the green space directly behind the building would be it's not really necessary. Maybe it'd be a wiser spot for, I'd like it closer to home if it were mine, but just my thoughts.
What we had talked about today, Scott, is that little connection from the northerly drive to the bailout lane.
Just went silent, Sean.
Let me share my screen again so I can talk and point. So normally, every drive-through user is required to have a bailout lane. So they certainly have that bailout lane shown here, but what they don't normally have is a kind of a connection point from one area of the parking lot to that bailout lane. That it's not necessary. They could certainly close that off, but by having it open here, it's a little unique, but it does provide an opportunity for them to do just what's being proposed and really not impact the flow of the site. And, to your point, as uses change, there may be a need to establish a loading zone in a different area of this site. And we did talk about that today, as well. But, I understand your point, but, this would not be, and I think the fire chief's on here. This is not a fire lane. Fire lane would have to be, I think, 20 feet wide anyway. This is just sort of a unique cut through where you could park a truck and unload it for half hour or an hour or whatever, would be necessary for the kinds of deliveries they're going to have. So it does seem like a reasonable, workable solution.
Okay, thanks.
If I could just address this.
Go ahead, Bo. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I know another concern was that it could be a 24-hour restaurant. Mitch, maybe you could address that. I believe from a previous agreement from the Sonic, there were certain hours that they weren't allowed. Is that right, Sean?
It is, and I can actually address that, and I should have mentioned it too. Yeah, we do not allow 24-hour operation here. Monday through, per the original approval in 2008, actually, it's been 13 years. Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to midnight, Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. were the hours of operation that were allowed for Sonic. So in my discussion with Mitch today, he felt that that would be a reasonable, workable time limit. Those would be reasonable, workable times for them. But certainly if they needed to modify that, they'd have to go back to the Planning Commission. We would certainly be opposed to a 24-hour operation at that location. There are residents immediately north of this drive-through. And so yeah, no 24-hour operation here.
Very good.
We're agreeable to the current time restrictions. So,
Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and I want to say hi to Bo. Also, it's been many years since you and I worked together, Bo.
Yes,
and
sir.
I respect him a great deal. So I'm glad that you're aboard, Bo.
Back at you, Mike. Thank you, sir.
Interestingly enough, in my review of this plan, and I have no idea why I review these plans, but I actually had the loading zone in the pull-through area as an option, and it makes a ton of sense, just short of where the pull-off lane needs to be for the drive-through. I think that's extremely logical. They're rarely used anyway. If somebody has a short stop, they're going to stop right in the middle of the driveway and run in and take care of their business. UPS is never going to stop over there in that corner. They're going to block everything and run in and deliver. So I'm certainly in favor of that. I'm certainly in favor also of the wider sidewalk widths. Boy, cars, even if you've got the dimensions there, you could have that parking space 35 feet deep. Cars are going to pull right up and overhang the sidewalk, no matter how much room they have in their parking stall. So we need to provide them a wheel stop. I guess I had a question and a thought. You're going to have a lot of people really upset at you keeping that drive-through lane only 12 feet wide and then stopping it with a curb 12 feet between curbs. You're going to have 90% of the people trying to jump that curb on the east side of that pull-through area where we're now talking about the loading zone there. That should be 14, 15 foot wide. Go north with your arrow there. Who's ever got that right there? Go to the left. I'm sorry, go to the west. Right there, that 12-foot dimension. Between there, you get very few cars unless you're a energy car or a eco car that won't hit that curb. So there's nothing magic about space to space having a face-to-face dimension of 12 feet. That's just my suggestion because I'm going to be one of those that's hitting that easterly curb every time I pull through there. The other question that I had was, and we didn't have this problem with the Sonic, but the access to the dumpster area. You can't turn a truck to access that dumpster area on 90 degrees there. You got a 40-foot turning radius trying to pull in there to get those dumpsters. Unless you think that the crossed off area, the pavement south of the dumpsters is the truck can pull through and then back into there and then pick up in the dumpster area. That's my only, quite frankly, my only major comment on the site. It'll be nice having activity there again instead of an empty building.
Very good. Any other questions from the board?
I think Mitch might have had an answer for the dumpster.
Yeah, just to touch on the trash pickup. That was largely the reason that we striped that area off to provide the 47 feet for the trash truck to maneuver and pick up the truck, because it was an existing trash enclosure and we wanted to provide as much space as possible there. So that was the design reasoning.
And the staff had actually, and I was one of them, encouraging them to leave the enclosure the way it is. On the back side of it is the basin, and we really didn't want them to tear it up just to change the orientation a few degrees. We wanted them to try to make creative reuse of that. So I appreciate them doing that. It actually lessened the amount of site work, and there's really not a ton of site work to do here anyway, because most of it's existing.
Very good. Any other questions from the board? Anyone want to entertain a motion? Mr. Powell.
Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of a preliminary site plan as presented with just some consideration of the board's discussion and any discussions from the planning commission and the consultants, sub-consultants, and planning department.
And allowing for administrative tweaking.
Correct.
I'm sorry, could I just, for point of information, could I ask, and that includes the locating of the loading zone as discussed tonight? And
Thank
that
you,
being
yes.
sufficient?
That was part of the discussion that we had as a board. So yes, that includes the location of the loading, unloading zone as presented at tonight's board meeting.
Thank you.
And again, with administrative tweaking as you see that it's fit for the site. I have a motion looking for support. I have support from Mr. Roman. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Great to see you again, Mike. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
gentlemen.
Take care, Bo.
Okay, we have item 10 is we have multiple FYIs. Item A is the FYI on the Western Oakland Transportation Authority, otherwise known as WOTA. You all received a financial report. From that report, as you peruse through it, you'll see that we are solvent and we're holding our own. But one of the more important things that I wanted to bring forward to you was to discuss the fact that in White Lake alone, we've had 2,595 rides to date and logged over 162,786 miles. That's a lot of trucking around and a lot of people coming and going, and we have had a continued use and growth. I had a gentleman the other day whom I had not met, but Mr. Noble had mentioned to me that he had a need because he had been in a couple of car accidents and he wasn't driving anymore. And I was walking across the parking lot and he got off the WOTA bus to go conduct some business in the township. And he said, "You Supervisor Kowal?" And I says, "Yeah." "Did you know me?" And I said, "I think I do, but I'm not sure." And then he said his name and he said, "This thing is a lifeline for me." And he said it has made all of the difference in my life in this community, and the fact that I can get around and go places, and if I want to go out to lunch. And he's not an elderly gentleman. He just has I'll call it a driving challenge. And we have made a difference in his world. So, and this I hear time and time again. So I wanted the board to be aware of the financial statement, to know that the organization is solid. Also know that we're in the process of applying for multiple grants. We also have a total of 6 new vehicles, which I think I posted the board on that. We have 4 of them that are coming through Zod Automotive and 2 of them that are coming through a group called Hoekstra. And those vehicles will be in our fleet relatively soon, and we will still be in real good financial position. And in the infamous words of Gary Wall, I asked him, "What's your thoughts on it, Gary?" He says, "I know it's working because my phone's not ringing." So that's a good thing. So that's the FYI on that. And I invite any of you, if you would want, we're going to be doing a couple events as things change and as our health climate becomes a little bit better. We'll be doing some events that you can come out and have a nice conversation with some of the folks that are actually involved on a day-to-day operation of WOTA, and kind of get to know them and know who's running the show over there. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Item B. Well, yes, Mr. Rome.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on WOTA and thank all those that are making this work, because it's a great program. It's a great success. And also, Rick, if you can touch base a little bit, you had mentioned Anthony and I today about ARPA. Can you maybe expand on that?
I will. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Roman, as I can't remember everything. One of the options we have under the ARPA is we can use some of that money for transportation. And some of our communities that are members are taking a hard look at looking at the ARPA money to do their funding for WODA for up to 6 years from that funding. And that money can be utilized for that purpose. Senior transportation is one of those purposes that as we look around, and there are limits as to what we can spend that money on, this is one of the allowable limits. So I would, a little premature, but as we move forward to this, I will come forward to the board and potentially make that request and be able to put some of that money to really good use and be able to have a very solid financial plan for the organization for several years to come.
Rick, just to remind the board, I think we were allocated what, 3.5 million?
3.25.
$3.25 million.
So, and we'll come up with a wish list and a needs list. Director Kim Viner will put something together and she'll present it to all of the communities. Highland is considering it. Waterford's considering it. I'm not sure what Walled Lake is doing at this point in time. And I think we should definitely consider that as a potential use of some of our monies. Mr. Noble?
Yeah, I'd let the board know that individual, not very old, he had some medical issues, but he's very, very fortunate, doesn't have an extended family. So that was a lifeline. I think during the next 3 or 4 months, I'm going to test it out by riding the transportation just to get an idea, you know, how effective it is. But according to him, it's a lifeline, and I thank everybody for supporting it, who's involved in it. And I think it's a great program because as my parents are aging, you know, that's going to be an issue for them. And I'm glad that living out where we live, we have those options as children of aging parents. A lot of times we can't be with them. So that's a great option, and I appreciate it.
Very good. And yes, Andrea Voorhees.
I probably had told the story before, but I'm a mobility trainer for my job, my full-time job. So this is absolutely great for the population I work with. I've worked with a young gentleman that works 20 hours a week, taking water to work every day, like 3 or 4 days a week. I don't really know because it's been a while. So that means it's given him complete independence to go to work on his own and come home. It's great. But I love your idea, Anthony. I have some days coming up in September. I might just do a mobility training on water to experience it myself, because I talk about water all the time at my job. We don't necessarily service a lot of this side of town, but we absolutely do at the same time. So thank you for the idea, Anthony.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay, moving on. Item B. Well, the tornado taught us one thing. It taught us that we're as ready as we think we are. We're never always ready. So this leads me to a real stick in my craw, which was the generator at our current facility. The generator we have, from what I have researched from the individuals who have serviced it and the electricians that have tried to remedy some of the issues, is undersized for our current building. Okay. When I have to run around and turn lights off and put air conditioners in rotation and play HVAC man for the day, because if we turn everything on, it overheats and shuts down. And on Wednesday, we had a front come through, and last Wednesday we had that front come through, and it knocked our power out at about 4 o'clock. The generator kicked on. Everybody went into minimum mode. We were able to function. The only AC that we really kept running was the AC in dispatch for PD, because you have to have AC in that room or it turns into a hot box and all the equipment in there. And we made it through that. And then almost 24 hours later, it seemed like to the clock, as I was walking through the Township Hall, and Edison had not been there, the generator died and the township went dead. It was a very unnerving feeling. And I proceeded to call our senator, whom I happen to have talked to earlier about the issue, and I told him that I would be unable to meet any requests to rescue anybody in a sense, because it would make it real difficult when your 911 center isn't working. And he immediately hung up the phone with me and went about pushing some buttons in Lansing. And we were fortunate enough to then suddenly become prioritized. One of the conversations that I had with him was that I would very much seek, and I met with him this morning at a legislative meeting this morning with him also. I would very much like to see in our, we'd like to be a very, lawful society and create all kind of laws for all kind of different things. And I said, let's make one that's extremely useful. Let's have a law on the books that says you as a public utility under law are required to attend to hospitals first, 911 centers second, and everybody else after that. And he has taken note of that and is having some conversation with some of his colleagues regarding that matter. I have friends that have worked for Consumers Power and Detroit Edison, and their logic is, well, if we fix circuit B over here, we'll get 15,000 people up and they'll be okay. If we fix circuit C over here, we'll get 8,000 up and they'll be okay. But circuit G, that's White Lake, and they've only got 6 houses on Dole Lane and their building is out. Well, the problem is we can't remedy that issue quickly, and our generator fails. We now have a major problem as far as I'm concerned. So I am going to be talking to several electrical contractors, seeking multiple bids, taking a look at a unit that potentially could be sized appropriately for approximately the new public safety building that we have tentatively planned. I'll be talking to a couple engineers, electrical engineers about that. And if anything, I'll air up. And we'll spend this money, but this will have 4 bolts in the ground. And when we go, it goes. And but in the meantime, we cannot be at risk of this. It's just absolutely ludicrous. Our officers did everything they could do. I mean, John Wheaton was great. He came in and got the machine running again. It went into overheat, and but it was just extremely frustrating. And we did not. That was at 4 o'clock. We did not have power on from Edison until 7:45 that night. But we were able to limp the generator along a little bit. But the mere fact that that happened twice now in a very short period of time is completely unacceptable. So I'm just letting you know that I'm going to be coming to the board with a proposal by next month, if not sooner, for a new generator. Yes, Mr. Ruggles.
I'm just curious, how big was that generator?
I don't know the KVA on it.
Oh, no.
Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, just so the board knows, we lost a whole day's work, which is really a shame. All of our receipting had to be rekeyed in for that whole day. I know accounting experienced the same thing, so it needs to be looked at. Rick, thanks for heading that up.
Yep, I certainly plan on doing it. So, which leads me to a review of the state of emergency. The state of emergency that was declared for the, yes, Trustee Smith. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think Clerk Noble also has a comment.
Oh.
So I just want to say, I have a question. I'm disappointed to learn that it took 27 days to think about fixing this generator. It failed on July 24th as well, and we were without 911 until 6:30, 7 o'clock Sunday.
It was remedied. It was remedied. And
right, Oakland County was there working so hard to get it fixed. So we knew that it was on the fritz 27 days ago. So I'm very glad that we're getting a new one, and we desperately need one. But my question is, and if it isn't happening, I'd like it to happen moving forward, that this generator is tested monthly. So was the generator tested monthly before?
They are tested. It is tested monthly. It's just the capacity. The generator, I can go out there right now and fire that generator up and it will run. Okay. And I think you're missing the point. The problem is that
I'm
it
not
is
missing the point. I
it's
watched people work on it for
undersized.
hours.
Good. It's undersized for the building. So the generator, there's nothing physically wrong with the generator. So the generator was serviced and has a history of service and has been looked after. It's just that when all of the equipment, because our building now is not what the building was when that generator went in. We have so many more computers, so many more electronic devices, so many more things. We have electric heat, space heaters. I mean, now obviously I'm not running the
I
summer.
understand that. My greatest
That's
concern
what
is
causes the
keeping
problem.
911 working. So
Exactly.
I just want to know, what is the process going to be moving forward? Is the generator going to be regularly inspected so that we don't have 911 down again?
It will be inspected as it currently is now. Yes.
Which is what is the current process now?
Every month it is run.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, Mr. Noble.
Since the generator is right out my window, that kicks on once a month. It self-checks itself. That happens. You can come sit here because it's roaring. This is not an issue that we can wait. I'm suggesting to the board that whatever motion we can make tonight, we spec out this generator. If we need to get it to spend the money for the building that possibly we might be in. That way we retrofit it. That way we can move it. And that way we're not spending money twice. But you're absolutely right, Trustee Smith. Big concern is 911 going down. We had 2 battery backups. If that goes down, that's no one's fault. This has happened. This is something that has come before us. We've been discussing this. Today we discussed it, Mike, Rick, and I. I don't feel it's anything that we can wait a month. I think we should get on this immediately. And that being said, if the 911 goes down, then we got police, fire, and people. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Keller, but we're unable to recoup. Someone said, and I'm not sure about this, that our calls go to Waterford.
Right, we were routed to Waterford.
Yeah, I don't know that. That's why I didn't misspeak. But we absolutely have to get a generator immediately and get on this project. That's my concern.
I've already started the process today. So, okay. Any other questions or comments from the board on this item? Okay, moving along. Well, that would be the state of emergency that we'll talk about. And what we're going to do right now is remain in that state of emergency because under the state declared state of emergency, we have not been federally recognized, and not being federally recognized, we do not qualify for a myriad of possible dollars. Really, when you're recognized as a federal area, it is generally set up to benefit persons who have no insurance or those who are underinsured. Okay, that is the primary FEMA financial end of things. And then there's a rather rigorous process you go to. Through the state of emergency, there is a article called Section 19, which the township can seek up to $250,000 in recovery for cleanup and things of that nature. So we are doing what we can within the limits of our ability of getting a hold of vendors and or, like, for example, the extra trash pickup, which we incidentally did not end up doing, and we ended up picking up have a brush pickup instead because the brush was more difficult than the trash company wanted to handle with. But it is coming along, and one of the things I will say is resilience of the White Lake residents has been just amazing. There'll still be some people out there that are going to need a little bit of help, and as time goes by, we'll continue to seek those resources to move forward on that. I have the next meeting in the end of August with Oakland County to go over where we are with this. And at that time, I will notify the board again at the next board meeting whether or not we have to remain in this state. We do need to be in this state in order to qualify for any financial reimbursement. So that's why we're going to hover in this position at this time. So, and Mike, I won't make you put a mask on or wear a kilt or do anything like that, okay, under the order, so you're safe. All right, any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, moving on. this would be D, Township Communications. It seems to me as though there is something that is of concern. I will tell you that all of you know that from time to time, each and every one of you, I talk to about different items that are either on the agenda that we want to have more discussion on or need further questions answered or information. I return calls. Trish is always there, willing to email information back and forth. Mr. Powell, I speak to you tremendous amount of time. Yes. And so there's no communication problem there. Mr. Noble, I speak with you every day. And Mr. Roman, I speak with you every day. Andrea, I call you. Trish, I return your calls when you call. And Mr. Ruggles, you talk to me every now and then about whatever it is that's coming along. So I'm not quite sure what the concern is. I'm more than happy to listen to whatever your concerns are. So with that, I say, who wants to go first? Trustee Smith.
I'm happy to go first. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So we had a workshop back in April 2020, and we worked on our administrative policies. And in that workshop, we were all in agreement that all community events would be shared with the township board, and information would be regularly shared with the township board of importance. And that's not happening. So I would like to.
Case in point?
Oh, I can give you lots of examples.
Well, give me the most recent one.
There was a police banquet this weekend that none of us knew about.
That was not that was not a township event or a public event. And I will gladly let Chief Keller address it if he's still on.
Well, even if it's not, so we should have just known about it. It was something happening in our community.
I'll let the chief address that because he's here right now.
I'm not finished, Mr. Supervisor, and then he can have the floor. So what I'm proposing after I spoke with our HR and our legal counsel, I'm hoping that my colleagues would join me in putting in an amendment to our administrative policies under 2.0, where it comes in the township board section, and that we would just put in there that a more formalized way to communicate with the board. Facebook isn't a professional form of communication, and a lot of times, unfortunately, board members, department heads, and staff are finding out things after the fact that are posted on Facebook. So I know myself and Mr. Powell and several trustees have asked for regular communication. Clerk Noble has stepped up some communication in the last several months, which is greatly appreciated. So I'm just hoping to put it in writing so it's a little bit more formal, and we have one clear way of communicating, whatever that board decides that may be. Our board decides the best way to communicate. If we make a point person, I know this might be a good time to add, because we're going to have a second full-time person in the supervisor's office. Maybe that's something that can be added to their job description. Perhaps it's something that Mr. Noble wants to delegate to his deputy clerk. I mean, it doesn't matter to me who the person is if we want to designate one person so we're all on the same page of communication, or I like the idea of putting it in our administrative policy so that it's really clear to everybody.
Well, the thing is that some things warrant communicating and other things may not necessarily warrant communicating.
But it should be our choice, Mr. Supervisor. So we should all know it. I'm not going to tell you
every time I change the paper in the bathroom. Okay?
We're not asking for things like that.
Yeah. So you'll get information as it comes out of the township, and events that are made public that have a attendance potentially by any of the board members, you are made aware of. There is not one that I have not made you aware of. Okay. And with that, I would defer to Dan Keller to address your previous statement.
Well, I'm not singling out, I just want to be clear. I'm not singling out the police department.
You are, because that's what brought this up was. Dan?
No, Mr. Supervisor, you asked me a recent example, so I gave it to you.
Point of order.
But this board has asked for 5 years for more communication. We discussed it in the policy workshop.
Point of order.
But it didn't get in writing.
Point of order.
Point of order.
The chief talk, please. Can we let Chief Keller talk to answer a question, then we can discuss, please.
Chief Keller, please proceed.
I'm not sure what the confusion is. That we had a police picnic that was not a public event. It was for police officers and their families to get together after a year and a half of not being able to spend time with one another. Excuse me. We treat each other as family here in the police department. It was not a public event. I'm not sure how if it was construed as a public event, it should not have been. It was not. If you feel that it was, it was not.
So Chief Keller, not to put you, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. This topic is not solely about you, so I'm sorry that you've been brought into it. This topic is just for all communication.
Okay. Well, I've yet to hear another communication issue.
Are you asking me or are you asking
Yes.
the board?
Yeah, I'm asking anyone on the board. Cite another issue.
I think that we've asked for communication pretty regularly.
And you get it,
For
and
years.
Trish sends things out as information is brought forward. You're always kept on board and abreast of any of the board packet information.
But
and
this
things of
board
that nature.
doesn't feel that way, Mr. Supervisor. You can hear from my
Are you
colleagues.
speaking for the rest of the board?
No, you could, my
Okay, you're
colleagues can
speaking
jump
for
in
yourself.
anytime.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Andrea, do you have any comment?
I muted myself. No, yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and call. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, Trish.
Novel
Sorry.
idea. Mr. Powell, do you have a deficiency in communications?
I have another example, certainly, and then I'll respond to Chief Keller's response. On the agenda tonight was a proposal for engineering of the Dublin Center. I had no concept at all that was coming. I had no concept of what was being proposed. You went out and asked for prices for things that you did not bring to the board. I had no idea what was being proposed, and otherwise you might have gotten a better response if we had known and discussed it as a board before you brought that price before us. So that's one item, and that's a legitimate item.
That's why you received that information over a week ago, to have that packet to look at, that if you had a question or problem that you could come forward and talk to me about it. It's
So nothing in the packet, Mr. Supervisor, told us anything that the township engineer did. It didn't tell us anything about the future and all of that stuff. It was just strictly a proposal to redo a parking lot.
And that's what it was meant to be, was a proposal to redo a parking lot.
All right, and so that's one example, and not again to the reason that it was brought up that it wasn't a public event. Even if we weren't invited as a board, we should have certainly known that there was a gathering of township officials so that we could have known. And if somebody had asked us, we would have said, yeah, it's a private thing between the police. It just so happens that Supervisor Colwell knew about it. It so happened that Clerk Noble knew about it, but nobody else in the township board did know about it. And being a public event, we go to events all the time as for a township that it's not public. It is a private venture in which the township trustees and the board is invited. We for 30 years, we've been going to the police and fire dedication and recognition dinners. And those aren't public events. Those were private events. So it's just another example. We would just like to know what's going on in the township before we have to see it on Facebook. That's all.
I can appreciate that, but that was strictly the chief's parade. Okay. And I respected his request for that at the time.
Oh, he told you not to let anybody else know.
He just, he did not say that. I said, should I let anyone know? And he said, it's a small event. Okay. There you go. Okay. Mr. Noble.
On my end, I took this office and part of the duties was to write the special tributes. And we did so. I actually canceled an event, family event that day to show up. I can only answer on my end. I could have let that known. It was my understanding. I apologize if I didn't communicate as well as I should have. But I was under the understanding it was a small event due to COVID. I actually sat along with Supervisor Colwell off to the side, didn't really mingle. I know the police officers and their wives and their families hadn't been together for a year and a half, but I try to, on my end, try to put memos out and communicate better. I think with the tornado, it was a very bad couple of weeks. What we went through at the township, power going on and off. So on my end, not making excuses. We've had a lot going on. So on my end, if I offended anybody, I apologize. But there was a lot going on, and continue on my end, going to try to communicate more and more so.
Indeed.
One additional point, just out of curiosity, in years past, previous township supervisors, clerks, and treasurers have always tried to include the trustees in signing proclamations and awards and things to our employees and to officials. And from what I understand, the representation was that the awards were given from the township. And I don't think, Mr. Supervisor, that you would assume that the trustees are not part of the township. And so
I would not.
So we didn't even know about those, though, and yet you represented it was from us.
Procedurally, that has been done. I've never seen I have personally never seen any plaque or award that has been signed by anything other than the 3 in-house officials.
Oh,
if that is the case, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just telling you procedurally, I've never seen it. I've been a supervisor for 5 years, never seen it. When I was a trustee for the 4 previous years, was never asked to sign. So that's 9 years right there. I don't know where in this, I don't know what you're basing it on, Mike. I'm not necessarily doubting you.
Yep.
May have been something that was done a long time ago, but somehow it didn't carry through. And again, as I was with under Supervisor Baroni, not done. And it was just the 3 house and officials that assigned placards.
All right, it might be a good thing to try to do, incorporate us in things like that.
Very good. Duly noted. Mr. Roman.
Yeah, I think the point is we can all try to err on the side of too much communication as opposed to not enough. I think we can all do a little better. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Noble.
I just want to add to your point. That was the benchmark that we were given, Trustee Powell. When we write those, we incorporate the board members as a whole, as a board. If I present that, I don't represent just me, I represent all of us as board members. But if we can find a document that has all of our names, I mean, I'm open to that. But I want everybody to know that we are a team. And I believe in that team. And I don't think that it was our intent it wasn't mine. I know it wasn't Rick's, Supervisor Cole, or Treasurer Roman to offend anybody. We can absolutely work harder to communicate. I believe that.
Just one quick comment. Anytime there's a presentation, let the trustees know.
Correct.
Very good. Okay, Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So you're hearing from multiple trustees, at least more than one, that we would appreciate some more communication. I'm not sure why you're getting defensive or that's a bad thing. It's a really easy solution. I'm not trying to point fingers or blame, but I can give a lot of examples of poor communication. And I don't want to embarrass anybody on this board. So I just am asking for communication. We made note of it in April 21st, 2020, and it's still continuing to this day. So I'm asking for a formal procedure now, either in a policy, in our administrative policy, which I talked to legal counsel and she thought that was a good way to handle it, or that we can put it in a job description, which again, would be a good time to do now since we have a new person coming into the supervisor's office, possibly in September. That might be a great task for them. I don't think, communication is a great thing and it makes this board stronger the more informed we are. So I'm really puzzled at the resistance.
Okay, very good. Mr. Roman.
Yeah, my suggestion, Liz, is put together what you think you want in there, bring it back to the board.
Okay, moving right along. We'll go into trustee comments. At this
So
time,
I placed this not for discussion, but for a motion.
I'm not ready to make a motion or entertain one until I have time to review whatever comes out there.
Well, we
and
added
discuss
it on
with
the
council.
agenda for an action item, not a discussion in the beginning.
No, this was discussion. Township Communications, it was discussion. FYI.
I
Mr.
believe we
Roman.
added it.
Yeah, Liz, I wouldn't be ready to vote until I see what amendment you want to make.
That's fair. So I do appreciate that.
There you
Liz,
go. Okay.
Trustee Smith,
Mr. Noble.
yeah, Trustee Smith, you know, firsthand going day to day, walking back and forth the office with all the stuff, the tornado, using this as example. We have one person working in an office. There was a definite need to bring on another person. I think moving forward, to your point, which is a valid point, and we all discussed that when we bring the next person, the person that's coming over to work in that office full time, you're going to see a lot more communication come through that office. I'm confident in that. If not, but to your point, to Treasurer Roman's point, I would not be ready to vote on that either unless we had something to look at. But I believe that once that second individual comes in there, that a lot of these problems will alleviate with what we're discussing tonight. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I sure
Okay.
hope so. And I do take that, both Treasurer Roman and Clerk Noble, that is fair to be able, I appreciate that too. I ask for things to be read and digest before I vote. So that's a fair request, and I'll look forward to this on next month's agenda.
Okay, moving along to trustee comments. Andrea Voorhees.
I'm going to be short and sweet this month. I'm just reminding everyone about this Farm Fall Festival, which is September 11th and 12th from 10 to 5. As a reminder, it's White Lake Township's premier festival of the year. I would love to see everyone there and the board volunteering our time. Talking communications. This is communications, guys. I'm gonna be taking attendance. I'm gonna expect to see you guys, everyone there. And I'm just gonna finish off with my be safe, be healthy, and let's all get vaccinated and get beyond this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I wanted to just bring the board up to date a little bit on some ZBA actions that I'd really like to have at least one of them remanded back to the Planning Commission to just evaluate. Due to the Township Council, we have been schooled that the ZBA may have been a little too laxed in the past. And therefore, we have been schooled on 5 points that every single action on the board has to go through to evaluate whether or not a variance should be approved. And it has to be, all of those points have to be provable, or quite frankly, the direction is that the request has to be denied. Sometimes there's some hardship issues and sometimes there aren't, but a couple of the things, last meeting, a builder inappropriately made a house larger than the ZBA had authorized. So went outside the variances that were granted. A mistake was made and the accommodation for the brick on the outside of the house was not accommodated. And so the whole home was 9 inches wider than what was approved at the ZBA. So it was brought back for the ZBA action. And it was decided that that the mistake was not intentional, that it was accidental, and therefore the variance was granted for an additional 9 inches of setback variance. Wanted the board to know about that because if it hadn't been granted, undoubtedly it would have been in court action because you can't consider having a house torn down or dismantled and made thinner because of a mistake. So that was something that came up, and I wanted the board to know about that because we're talking about communication here. One additional item, and it ends up being a verbiage in the zoning ordinance that if you have a walkout basement, the walkout basement is not considered a story because it's behind the home. And many of us have walkouts, and so you end up with a walkout on the back side of a house. There was a variance requested before us to where the grade actually dropped from back to front, and so the road is out front. And the board members really felt that there was a hardship there because they wanted a walkout on the roadside and not on the back side of the house. Because of the definition of story, we felt that it was a self-imposed hardship, but quite frankly, it wouldn't have hurt anything. And it's exactly the same provisions and calculations and everything if the walkout were on the back side of the house instead of the front side of the house. So I asked Sean and maybe the planning department to look at that language. And was it specific that we shouldn't have granted that variance because a story is not defined if you have a walkout on the front of the house versus the back of the house? Also, the percent cost of improving a house. When you improve your house over 50% of its actual value, the ordinance doesn't allow that. In today's market and today's construction cost, you can well imagine how little of an addition or how little of an improvement that you can put into an old cottage or a smaller home, and you exceed that 50% rule. That is, in my opinion, way outdated, but we're being asked to grant variances for that. And in strict compliance with our attorney's direction, we would have to deny that because it's a self-imposed hardship to want to improve your house greater than what the ordinance says. And so those kind of things need to be looked at to take a little pressure off the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I think the board should be proud of our ZBA and that we are granting much fewer variances than were done in the past. On another issue, if you think about the request from DLZ for a $46,000 cost to just design a parking lot renovation or resurfacing, we could hire an entire staff person, an entire professional engineer on staff for just about twice what that one project was going to cost the township. And what a shame. And we have to maybe think about that a little bit. When it comes to the generator, I kept hearing that we got a $3.25 million grant from somebody.
Can't spend the money on it.
Yeah, because I would think that it'd be a major COVID thing. If we had a major COVID outbreak, wouldn't it be terrible to not be able to send the ambulances to places and because our emergency power went out. So I just threw that out there. And then I was hoping that we as a township, and I know spending township funds for cleaning up private sites, large trees, and all of us saw an amazing amount of devastation the last 3 weeks in the township. Spending township funds to help clean up other people's properties. It'd be nice if a way could be figured out to help people like that. But at the very least, I was wondering if the township couldn't get together and ask for requests for proposals for cleanup of trees in White Lake Township that we can offer the best prices to our residents instead of being taken advantage of by outstate tree companies. So I know we have companies that we give names out, but we should be able to go out for bids to help them bid against each other to give our people the best prices possible. Just a thought, thinking outside the box, and thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Rick, you there?
I think he froze. He got mad at me. He froze.
He looks irritated.
Yes, he does. There he is.
Don't know what happened there.
Froze.
Yeah, Mike, there's a lot about the trees, but I'll talk to you about it later. It's just, when a situation like this happens, it's not that simple. So
Okay.
I found that out, trust me. Okay. Mr. Roman.
Thanks. I'd just like to thank all the residents that have tuned in to tonight's meeting. Appreciate you staying in tune and stay safe.
Trustee Smith.
You, Mr. Supervisor. I will give a quick library update, the status of their services. They're basically back to regular service with just a couple exceptions. Masks are no longer required in the library. No time limits for browsing. Seats are available. Computers for 2-hour sessions, no appointments needed. Virtual programs and some outdoor events. Study rooms are available for one-person use. Returns are no longer quarantined and curbside delivery continues. Also, they very excitingly finished their patios. So if you haven't had a chance to see those, they're great. And I look forward to many wonderful programs being held for children and adults alike. The Friends of the Library are having a book sale on August 19th, which is Thursday from 3 to 7, August 20th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and August 21st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then I want to take a minute to, I know I thank them, but they deserve an incredible amount of thanks at our last special meeting, and we didn't have maybe the public audience, and Chief Holland wasn't on at that time. But I want to thank our fire department, Chief Holland, and Captain Lilly especially. He really held down the fort in our CERT team in White Lake Township, which if anyone's not familiar, those are volunteer residents. My husband and I are a member, and it's the Community Emergency Response Team. Our own White Lake Township team came in, and then we received aid from other CERT teams in the county. I know Rochester sent aid. They were incredible help to our first responders, and I just want to thank those residents that some of them were out all night with our staff and our first responders cutting down trees. They did such a great job, and the fire department, the police department, they did a wonderful job. And then I want to thank the Homeland Security and Emergent Response Team for their leadership from the county. Without their resources that they lent to us, we wouldn't have been able to get through it as well. So I just want to thank all those groups of people through the tornado, and thank our residents for being resilient and so neighborly to each other, and we all got through it together. And just lastly, I want to wish all the students a great start to the school year. I'm sad that summer is over, but I just wish you well in your school year. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, thank you. So White Lake Township Planning Commission has met a couple of times. Those agenda items have come before the Township Board, and we'll be meeting again this Thursday. Other than that, I'd just like to say, Andrea, I hope I didn't upset you earlier, but that topic is one that's extremely frustrating to me. So I apologize, but certainly respect your decision.
Good, Scott.
As far as shot or whatever, but I didn't comment on communication. I was just kind of taking it in. One reason I didn't comment is it's not my strong suit personally, especially as my wife would say. Two, I have a hard time with constructive criticism, so it's hard for me to hand it out in a public forum. But I would say communication is one thing that can always be improved upon. And so I was actually scrolling Facebook. I saw the picture, and I just thought, oh, it's another meeting that somehow passed me by. But I asked the other trustees, and none of us were there. So that's kind of how I found out about that. But either way, moving forward, I'm sure it's something that can be improved. And the generator, 100% behind that. I just wonder how you can get it sized appropriately. There must be, I would assume, an engineer someplace that can handle that for you. But other than that, moving forward with the kids going to school, I saw today Linden voted not to have masks, and I sure hope that all the other school districts follow suit, because I do not want to force my kids to put a mask on and go to school. But on that note, thank you, and I'll see you in next meeting.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Noble.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to recognize Lieutenant Hild for 25+ years of dedicated police service. He's retiring. He's going to one of the police unions for his second career. He dedicated a lot of hours and holidays, weekends, worked on countless murder or high-profile investigation. One, the latest being a murder case, which he was lead investigator, did an outstanding job. Police work takes a lot out of you, and recognizing his wife for her sacrifices, I believe we can all can thank her as well. Also, Anna Cross for receiving a Police Employee of the Year. She does an outstanding job. She takes on a lot of liability by running our lean, making sure that all the officers that are certified, she does an outstanding job for our community. So I can recognize her. And last but not least, I'd like to recognize John Wheaton. John Wheaton, when this generator has been kaput, as Rick would say, he's been coming in the blink of an eye. He's in there. He's out there with radiator antifreeze, trying to fill up the generator, trying to keep it running back and forth. So John was an intricate part of keeping things moving during our emergency. And I just want to recognize Mr. John Wheaton. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well, we have a lot to be thankful for. Primarily, that is that we made it through the storm without any casualties, and that's the greatest thing. There's a learning curve for everything, and that was a very tough one to learn things through. You find out what brings out the best in people, and you find out what brings the worst in people. When I was out working with the CERT crew, clearing roads till 2:30 in the morning, it was interesting to watch how we would be doing something and folks would just pull up along out of nowhere and try to help us out, move logs or push things off. So it was a good experience with the folks that were out there. Our fire department, police department, all of our services did the best they could, even though communications were really difficult due to the fact that there was no cell phone. We had difficulties with every type of communication. Unless you had a radio, a police radio, or radio from the fire department, you really were kind of at a little bit of a difficulty. I'd like to thank the too many people there is to thank that were helpful to White Lake Township. And in particular, I'd like to thank some of the unsung heroes, which are some of our local church groups who have gone out there and helped a lot of folks out there. And they truly practice what they preach, and they were pretty amazing. So I know they like a little bit of an anonymity, and I'm gonna keep it that way. So as we learned something from all of this, and we all learned that we take what out of that experience and try to apply it, and hopefully we don't have another once in a lifetime experience like this one, because once was too much. And we are still moving ahead, trying to assist residents any way that we can within the limits of our capability. So that I say, I thank my board, I thank the residents out there for tuning in tonight, and I wish all of you a good evening, a safe evening. And with that, I'll say good night, God bless, and make a motion to adjourn. Looking for support.
Or, go ahead, Rich.
I have support. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Supervisor Kowa,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.